Hello. Now, for some of you, this might be a nostalgic flashback. And for some of you, you might be thinking, why is he in his car talking to us via the camera? Well, the truth is, the YouTube channel, One Lone Coder, JavidX9, is approaching its 10th birthday soon. And the channel started out just like this. I would sit in my car and talk about various tech issues at the day. It was never a rant, it was just more of an open-minded stream of consciousness being delivered to a camera. I didn't have any viewership in mind, it was really just to catalogue my own thoughts. And there is no doubt that over the last 10 years, the landscape of coding has changed considerably. Over 10 years ago, I was doing a PhD in university. And the PhD was in a topic called neuromorphic engineering. In fact, this was a lot longer than 10 years ago. We would study how the anatomy of the brain solves problems. It involved a degree of cognitive psychology. And then once we would understand, or think we understood, the basic mechanisms of this, we would then try to replicate them with software systems, circuits, and silicon. It was really exciting. It was an almost emerging field. Neural networks had been around for decades prior, but nobody had really attempted to throw hardware at them before. What's interesting with neural networks and machine learning is not very much has changed in terms of the computation and our ability to understand it, but rather the scale at which we can process these things. I had to put up with, get this, an AMD Opteron dual-core processor. This was unheard of at the time. And a lot of memory, about 8 gigabytes. These days, the big tech companies have entire data centers and processor farms in order to do much larger simulations, and in a much quicker turnaround time too. And this has led to what we see today as generative AI. After I finished my PhD, I stayed on as a bit of a jobbing academic for a few years, and just before I left the university, we saw the first glimpses of Google's DeepMind. Well, it might not have been Google at the time, but the DeepMind algorithm, where you saw all of these fantastic pictures of dogs morphing into cats with all of these sort of psychedelic rainbows in between. And what they were looking at was sort of the interlayer connectivity being visualized in interesting ways. Why is this relevant? While working at the university, I worked with year upon year of students, and I noticed a gradual decline in their interest and ability to program computers. It was disappointing to me. And I'd also noticed there was an uptake in the students using online resources in order to teach themselves. So I had a mooch about some of the programming resources, and they were either extremely good, bear in mind I was a postdoctorate software guy, so they were really, really in-depth and detailed, or they were absolutely appalling. There was no middle ground. They were patronizing or just simply wrong. This put an idea in me that maybe there's a place for a YouTube resource, video resources which are easy to absorb, but reasonably factual, somewhat entertaining, and crucially functioned upon the absolute basics of computer science and programming. That idea stuck with me for a few years. Eventually I began to crave niceties such as food and heating, so I had to leave academia and jump ship to industry. And this newfound degree of freedom in the evenings allowed me to start my YouTube channel, JavidX9, and fundamentally the One Lone Coder initiative. The channel started off with simple algorithms and tidbits of code that were entertaining as well as practical. There wasn't really an interest in trying to grow to large numbers. The social media and influencer culture just really wasn't on my radar at all. But as the channel got bigger, my ambitions of the videos started to get, well, bigger too. And so they became bigger projects and more complex algorithms, and things had to be split over 3 or 4 videos to explain fully. Then, of course, I became a father, and the output of videos dropped off significantly. And it would be quite ignorant of me not to acknowledge that coding has changed. And the reason that I told you my sort of background in AI is that you might assume I'm a proponent of these changes, but what I'd like to describe to my community is where do I stand on these things? Because certainly across the various platforms that I'm a member of, I've seen recently lots of debate, lots of very polarizing debate, and I don't think it's possible to take a position one way or the other on generative coding AI. I think to understand my stance on AI like this, we need to look at the bigger picture. You need to look at the tech companies. You need to understand social media. You need to understand echo chambers. You need to understand a bit of human nature. Humans tend to fall into three camps. They're either extremely for something, extremely against something, or borderline apathetic in the middle ground. However, that middle ground is quite important. Nuance is an important factor of any discussion of any issue. But we live in a world where that's becoming very difficult to do. As coders, we tend to spend a lot of our time online. We tend to spend a lot of our time communicating in groups that align with our interests. And I don't think it's any secret that the tech companies and social media in general aims to form these little bubbles of communities because they know that that sort of division strengthens bonds between people, and that allows them to profile them in such a way that they can advertise to them appropriately. I know some of you will be thinking, oh yeah, go on, put your tinfoil hat on. I'm not like that at all. But a healthy skepticism of these environments is crucial to understanding sort of my stance on AI. These big tech companies are incentivized to get you to have an opinion about AI. It's far easier for them to generate an army of people that love it in order to progress its proliferation across the globe. After all, they have invested very heavily in this technology. They want to see returns for that investment. And be under no illusion, money absolutely talks. If you go and pay some tech pros or some influencers to go and talk about your latest generative AI model, then they know that will have a realistic impact on the world. Because most people they don't understand these basic principles of AI. They don't understand that it's just an algorithm that does some classification. Having this ignorance of how it works allows them to trap people in. And these bubbles crystallize a community into either being for or against a particular thing. But with AI in particular, I don't think that's a sensible position to take. I think, if anything, I would sit somewhere along the middle ground. But I wouldn't be apathetic about it. I'd be healthily skeptical about it. There's no doubt that certain fields of generative AI are going to be incredibly disruptive, to the point where people will lose their livelihoods. I'm talking specifically about the creative industries, so artistry, music, writing, that sort of thing. We've all seen how easy it is to create any sort of imagery just with a simple text prompt. There's a real insidious nature to this, that of course AI doesn't actually do anything inspirational. It cannot create. So instead, it just regurgitates things that it's seen. So there is an ethical argument to say, well, the AI has been trained on things that have been created by people who have put lifetimes of development and skill into generating materials that are then thrown at this AI for somebody to quickly develop any sort of imagery they want. Imagery, music, text, it doesn't matter. If we really want to get into the weeds of things, there's an argument to say that humans don't do that either. It takes 18 years or so to train a human to the point where they can do something useful, and all they do is regurgitate variations of the things that they've seen. But I don't want to get too philosophical about this for this video. On the flip side, what AI is very good at is classifying and grouping and spotting anomalies and patterns. In the UK, we have a health system which is crumbling. Why are we not ploughing money into AI to help do medical diagnosis, medical imaging, spot patterns and trends in medical records? This is exactly where it could excel, and I still think you would need a doctor in the process, because it's just another source of information for the doctor to draw upon a conclusion. Going negative again, I cannot even think about what education systems are going to be like over the next 10 years, and I'm saying that as the father of a young person. Classically educating a child has to now be completely different to what it was before. There's no point in teaching a child about the history of the pharaohs if they can simply regurgitate this information and have it spit out a report. Can you imagine a teacher's career just reading one AI slop report after another AI slop report? That's obviously going to have to change. But maybe I'm missing the point here. I don't think the point of teaching children these things was ever to regurgitate fact after fact after fact. Even the teachers struggle to do that, let's be honest, they have textbooks. And we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that actually, once the child is armed with a base of information, what they're really being tested on is their ability to draw upon that information and form opinions and express those opinions in a coherent way. I guess with my teaching example here, it's a real good example of the nuance of these things. if you take a sort of very simple look at it, yes, it's devastating to the education system, but is it really? No. I think like all new technologies, it's going to actually enhance the education system. It just needs to find its feet. But certainly in the short term, I don't know how you would classically educate a child over the next 10 years. Absolutely crazy. It must be a really, really challenging environment for teachers today. But let's bring things back to coding. That's what we're all about, after all. I've been making some new technology with the OneEncoder Pixel Game Engine 3. It's going to be released pretty soon. And during the development of that project, I upgraded my development environment Visual Studio to 2026, and it is littered now with AI interventions. On the surface, it's really quite fascinating. It's like IntelliSense has always been. As I'm typing, variables pop up, recommended functions pop up, and it's great. You just press tab, it allows you to code things a lot quicker. It goes one step further. It actually, instead of just popping up a new token to choose, it pops up a recommended little snippet of code. It could be 5 or 6 lines or so. It could be an initialization. It could be calling a different function than what you were thinking. Most of the time, it gets it right. And so you click tab and you think, yep, that's really, really good. If you're a bit more adventurous, it can go further. It can actually go and create 10, 20, 30 lines of code. And before you know it, you're rattling through it. You tab, 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 tab. And, well, frankly, suddenly it doesn't work. It works okay, but not quite as you expected. But there's a problem. I'm not actually invested in the code that I've put on the screen. I have no ownership of it. I've not written it. So even when it was small enough, when it was just a few lines, I could sit and debug it and understand it and sort of real-time check, was it correct? When you start giving it these larger tasks, I emotionally disconnect from the code that I'm writing and just making an assumption that it's done a good job. And in reality, it hasn't at all. Things get even worse when you ask it to do agentic style coding. So I could go away and say, go and develop an application that does this, this, and this. I believe this is also known as vibe coding, which is another sort of easy to use buzzword to describe this sort of thing. That's definitely the tool of advanced marketeers. When I've tried these sort of agentic approaches, they just simply don't work very well at all. And it creates a huge code base, which by the time I have analysed and understood and diagnosed some of the faults with, even with the AI's assistance, I could have just done it myself. What I've noticed though is that the output of these AIs perhaps is a bit dangerous. It convinces me I'm doing a lot of work. It convinces me I'm doing a good job. There is no doubt in certain situations it's outsmarted me. It's come up with a solution that I wasn't thinking about. But those are few and far between. One area I have seen it being quite useful is actually in performance enhancement of coding. So if you're in the debugger in Visual Studio and you do some profiling of your code, where does it slow down? And then you can ask the AI, why particularly is this function behaving so slowly? It can generate some responses, which if nothing else, at least make you perhaps think down a different path. That's quite useful, rather than having to sit and analyse it yourself. However, some of the solutions it comes up with are, well, creative at best, certainly in my experience. I think so far, my experience of these things is it's useful, but it's just not quite there yet. And I think that's a big yet. Depending on how you feel about these things, some of you will say, well, in 6 months it will be. I'm more of the 6 years kind of opinion. And over those next few years, I think there will be a genuine trust in AI coding problem. At the moment, it's an exciting fad technology. Everybody's jumping on it. Let's get some investment into it. Let's see where it can go and explore it. But ultimately, people are not going to want programs and algorithms that don't really work. And we live in the real world. And this is a very important point that I'm going to make. We live in the real world, and like it or not, the real world is pushed around by investment and money working its way through business systems. At some point, people will want to see returns on the investments. So if you've invested your hard-earned cash into a software development company and they're producing slightly substandard products day after day because they can have these sort of high repetitious rates of release, then you're not going to see a return on your investment. Firstly, the consumers aren't going to put up with just general apps that are not very good. The backlash will be there. Secondly, there will be a fragmentation fatigue. If you're just generating apps whenever you want to generate something, then can you imagine as a user, literally your app on your phone or your desktop updating 2 or 3 times a day with the latest version, but something's changed all the time? The sheer user experience is going to be absolutely terrible. Investors are going to insist that actually there is a quality to the product's output. And again, we can all laugh and joke and pick examples where that's not the case, but on the whole, the trend is consumers prefer quality over quantity, and will actually shun products that don't meet some standard they expect. This means there's a demand for some human intervention to make sure that the AI, if it is generating code, it is doing so in a useful and trustworthy manner. Those people that are doing these checks are going to need programming skills and an understanding of computational principles. As we begin to see communities producing memes about vibe-coded and AI-generated slop, then we can start to see communities are already having a bit of a backlash. They're pushing back against what this technology should be used for. Investors will be wary of this. So if you're of the position that AI bad, then certainly do keep pushing back. If nothing else, the business side of the world will make a correction and potentially produce AI models that are a bit more ethical and good. I know this requires a lot of trust in the system, and I know that certain audiences, such as mine, may have a healthy skepticism of the system as a whole. At an extreme level, it's also possible that it might be more profitable in the future for businesses to employ humans to write programming. Certainly, if the risk of getting it wrong with AI generation and the backlash from the consumers is high enough, then it's not profitable if as soon as you release your AI-generated product, it gets review bombed, it gets mocked, it gets reported, and there's nothing there. You haven't got a product that anybody wants. You've still had investors put money into your company, but you can't return on it. Also, as the AI models grow in sophistication, computing them is becoming incredibly costly. It's no coincidence that the drive in small modular reactors around the world in proximity to data centers to process these AI things are huge financial decisions. These also require significant investment. Humans as a species, by their very nature, are susceptible to hype. We like to be part of the crowd. We want to be on a side. We want to support a team. We want to be behind a new interesting technology or against it. We want to fall into a particular camp. It's very affirming and validating to be this way. And certainly as coders, as we exist on the internet, it's very easy for us to form those societal connections and take them to the extremes. But we shouldn't forget as humans that we should also do things for the joy of doing it. And I feel very passionately about this. If you like painting, go and paint something. You don't have to go and generate it on AI. If you like writing music, go and compose something. If you like coding an algorithm, go and write it. Go and have that mental exercise. Hey, take it further. If you like cooking, go and learn how to cook and eat food properly. That's something AI won't be able to do. If you want to have children and enjoy that sort of experience of life, go on dates and find things out. AI can't do that, and it can't take that away from you. There's something very nice about the qualities of being human being revealed because this technology is beginning to appear. And the thing about hype is it's only hype until the next thing comes along, and then we all jump onto that bandwagon and start hating each other and arguing with each other about that. And suddenly, what we were fussed about is in the distant past. It's not a problem anymore, it's just something in the background that's there. So anyway, nobody asked about it, but there's my take on AI. What will this do for me and my channel? Well, not very much. In fact, I'm going to take the channel on a slightly simpler route. I think at the moment, the world doesn't need complex algorithms being described to it. It needs reaffirmation of the very basic computing principles that we need in order to survive in an AI world. I'm also going to be slowing down the videos too. I'm going to make them a bit more peaceful. I've got some plans this year to do some outdoor coding. Should be quite exciting. Anyway, until next time, take care. See you later.